6.5, or are we talking $8, $9 million?
What you see in the book that we presented to you is $6.5 million. I mean, I don't have any hidden costs. We designed the system through almost over a year's period with your staff, and we took it almost down over $4 million from the original 11. The key was to try to keep the integrity of the system, and we were able to do that by doing some various things that do not affect the day-to-day operation of the system. And so right now, that's what we have done. We have come to you with, this is what we need to implement the system and put it into place and provide coverage within the county throughout the entire area with portable radios. That's key.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask some questions later on.
Okay. Mr. Seeley?
I'm not quite ready yet, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Underwood?
Not yet, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Akers?
Mr. Chairman, I guess my question is to staff of the committee that worked with Motorola on this issue. The last time we discussed it or talked about it, there was going to be some having to use some of the Hanover towers, things of that nature. What is that cost going to be? Or is that included in the 6.5 million?
That would be a rental cost that we've got to negotiate. We've had some talks with the staff in Hanover to use Beaver Dam and Doswell, and of course the Doswell one is right on the county line. Mm-hmm. That way we can go in their existing building. We'll be using their existing electricity, existing UPS, and existing generator. Our rack of equipment and then wires up and the antenna on the tower would be put on. So there's money in there to put all the equipment at the site, but we'll have to pay rent there to Hanover, which we have some ideas of what those things would be, but we got to negotiate that totally with Hanover, and obviously once the board approves it, we'd have to have Hanover ask the Hanover board for that. But it would be in line with what we'd have to pay if we were renting on a private tower as well. So,
what kind of numbers are we talking about? Because I think the
about
original
about $1,000 a month.
Oh, okay.
Is that correct, Alan?
And the $10 million, excuse me, the $10 million project included towers in Caroline County to cover the entire county.
It included 8 sites in Caroline County, but they were not all new sites, so there would be rental on some of those sites probably as well. What we've done by reducing those 2 sites and putting them over into Hanover is basically saving us the purchase of one of those concrete shelters at about 12 by...
It was, we're using 10 by 12.
10 by 12 shelter, a generator, and a UPS system, so that's the savings several hundred thousands of dollars in cost for being at that location.
It's also my understanding that by using the Hanover Tower and Beaver Dam, especially Beaver Dam maybe, as well as Doswell, did we increase the coverage area that we could get on the radio? Or not?
No. We looked at that. We went from 7 sites to 6. And to keep that 7th site in, which would keep a tower somewhere, Vepco Tower or Goldsville Road.
Yeah, it was the Vepco Tower.
It was about an extra $591,000. So you would, to keep that in, which would keep the coverage in that area at about 95% instead of 92, was about another $591,000. So the committee made the recommendation that we'd go to the board with 6 sites, that we really were trying to get close to $6 million that you all had asked us to get to, and that the coverage from 95 to 92 was not something that was going to be noticeable. We did have, Sheriff's Department people and Fire and Rescue people, the main users on the system, along with the schools, and they were comfortable with what was recommended to the board ultimately with the 6 sites, 2 of which being in Hanover. Could it be better? It would be if we put another tower back up in that Route 1 corridor.
Now, let me ask a question along what Mr. Akers just said, because you said something about rental costs for towers in the county. We have an ordinance that says we get to co-locate county things. So
you still got to negotiate that, and I haven't looked at all of those. And some of the older sites, one of which may be Port Royal, we got to determine what that would be with the owner. It may not even be a proffer on some of the older towers in the county. A lot of them.
A couple of the original ones.
Yeah, a lot of them give you 1 slot, and we need a microwave dish and several antennas, so it's a negotiation point on the towers.
Okay, okay. All right, Mr. Akers, were you done? Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, just a few questions. One of the concerns that I have is that the technology changes quickly, and we're about to spend $6 million, or we down from $10 million, which certainly is very good. But
Yes.
is there any guarantee that we're going to be good for X number of years or a period of time, or do you have anything, or is there anything built in that will give us any assurance? Because I don't want to be faced with a situation 12 months down the road.
No, I understand, and that's certainly a good question. In our world that we live in, it's very difficult to chase technology, without a doubt, right? So what we're looking at here, though, the nice thing about what we've done with this particular system, we're looking at 700 megahertz. So it's a kind of a high up in the spectrum. And we are proposed to the county, within the money that we have put into the book there, that you come out of the box at TDMA. So what that's doing is, in 2017, the FCC is going to come with another mandate, right? For 700 megahertz users, you're going to need to be TDMA. So an example, right above us in Stafford County, they purchased a system several years ago. They're 700 megahertz. They're not TDMA yet. So they're going to have to invest some money into their system to be compliant. We've already put you in compliancy for that, which is going to be good to go. You don't have to reinvest any additional monies with that.
And I'm just, and I guess that's the best answer we can get, but it's just it just concerns me that we may be standing here 2 years from now looking at something that's requiring us to make adjustments and they not be covered.
I understand. And the other thing that the system has is it is really tremendously software driven. And currently the release that will happen with Caroline is what we call Astro 7.14. We are projecting currently 7.30. So what that is 2030. So you're able to, as the county sees fit, continue to do upgrades to the software, whereas in most cases the hardware will not have to be touched. It's just whatever you want to do.
Okay. My understanding is we're looking at, is it 95% coverage?
Yeah, that's kind of a standard in the industry for public safety. We try to provide 95% coverage within a county boundary or city.
Okay. So the other 5%, I mean, I know nothing is 100% in this day and time, but how can we address that?
Well, until we know exactly where they are, and we can never give you 100%. It's just, you can't do that. You would want to throw me out if I was trying to tell you that. In the radio world, you just can't. There's going to be issues. You just can't cover it all unless you want to put a tower on every corner, and that just doesn't make a lot of sense. So what we try to do when we have the final design, our engineering staff will do the best they can to optimize the antenna structures and get the most that they can from that. Example, Hanover County, we promised 95%. When we did the coverage testing, we came in at 98%. Stafford County, which is a similar system, we promised 95%. We came in at 99%. So we try to overperform.
That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Garner, just a couple of questions before we go back around.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned the technology we were using was TDMA.
Correct.
What does that stand for?
Time division multiple access. And what that does is if you have 3 frequencies, and in our case, we're going with 4 frequencies. When we go TDMA out of the box, we're actually, it now becomes time slot. So instead of just having 3 frequencies, we're going to be working on 6 time slots. So that gives your public safety, schools, and all those folks 6 base stations, if you will, to pick from when they push the button to talk. It searches through them, gets the open one, locks on, and lets everybody talk on that channel.
Just basically like pulse technology, but you can split it out with a pulse, and then you divide it in half. Is that similar to CDMA?
CDMA, now you're getting a little out of my realm. I am not an engineer, but CDMA is somewhat different with the scenario of cell phone technology and that type of thing. Our normal everyday radio system, like Hanover, for example, they're FDMA. So they're more frequency-based, where we're going to be more of a time division scenario. So you get more for your money without having to buy more base stations. Okay. So you're only going to have 4 base stations at each site, but you're going to have 6 talk groups.
Okay. My thought, when you said TDMA, I thought of a presentation we had from Verizon or one of those people about wireless phones.
Yes, sir.
And I remember the technology
CDMA.
changing before we got to smartphones. I don't know what they are now, but besides smart. But the technology in that sense is stable, or is it still growing, changing, evolving, being different than what we have?
It's currently state-of-the-art at this point, because you don't see too many TDMA systems out there. Like I said, Stafford's going to move to TDMA. If Hanover wants to in the future, they certainly can, to give them more channel capacity. They don't have to. They're 800 megahertz. They're not under the same type of constraints. Correct.
Yeah, we've got to do something. You know it. We know it. A lot of people out in the audience and on TV don't know that we're under federal mandate to eventually move to narrowband, which is why we're talking to you. Okay. And you know, I know a little bit about technology. We really, anything more than 18 months out is going to be obsolete, because that's kind of what happens. You're saying yours is more software driven, so 18 months there'll be a new upgrade. You'll send that out. You know, we'll download the software, whatever we do, and our hardware will be able to handle that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Black, we'll go back around again to make sure we got everybody.
Yeah, I was looking at the maps over the weekend. Maybe I'm touching on what Mr. Akers was looking about, but I see that we have 2 sites here in Hanover. But I'm looking at some of the coverage maps, and my concern is, with a lot of the population is in the lakes. You know, Lake Caroline, Lake Landor area, the western part. And when you look at some of these maps, I see some very solid coverage up in Port Royal and Corbin. And not saying that, but I mean, the biggest area of population would be the western part of the county along the Route 195 corridor. And looking at some of the maps, I see some, you know, I mean, I don't want to buy a $6.5 million system and then there's, you know, a deputy in there and say, hey, I don't have communication in Lake Landor. And that's where, you know, that's a huge part of your county population.
Understood.
I mean, I guess maybe this is for the technical committee more than, you know, I was talking to Mr. Cully. We were talking about the tower sites, and a lot of the tower sites, it was more expensive because we were buying the own equipment, correct? Like a lot of the tower sites in Caroline County.
Yeah,
the ones that we were putting like at Port Royal.
That's correct. We have to put a hut there, put a generator.
Did we ever look, and I mean, I'm just kind of curious because of the population, you know, density in that part of the county. Have we looked at, was there ever a look to have a tower in the western part of the in Caroline and then move one of those sites, I mean, to King George? One of the Port Royal or Corbin site. Was that ever looked at? I'm just thinking, I mean, it's 95, and maybe 95% of the coverage, but I mean, we also have to look at population, where the population is.
Sure, understood. And I will caution you on the coverage maps. They're coverage predictions, and they're done at 95% portable walkie-talkie. So, and then some of them are different. We have one we're showing you for informational purposes at 12 dB, and what that means in everyday terminology, like maybe if you're in a Walmart, a normal house is 8 dB. In other words, that creates an issue for someone to talk out of. So you get into that map being a 12 dB, that's what you would have if you're in an area like a Walmart. This school would probably be more in the 18 dB because of the size of the walls and the thickness and the way it was built. So the specification originally, when we responded to it in the RFP, was walkie-talkie in street. So that's the map that you should look at. Now there are a white spot here or there, correct. Now what does that mean? What that's showing you or depicting is it's less than 95% coverage. Now is it 94%? Is it 90%? Is it 88%? I don't know until we went out and physically went out and did our coverage testing. Part of what Motorola does is we do guarantee coverage. And we will do a complete, what we call coverage acceptance test plan that has to be signed off on by the county. Actually, we ask county participation. We have patrol cars from sheriff, and we have fire rescue folks, along with our folks, go out and do coverage testing.
I guess I'm looking at maps. So are you saying if there's, my concern is this: if we're spending $6.5 million, if there is if there's a fireman or if there's a policeman in a building in the western part of the county,
Okay.
is that deputy or that fireman, are they going to be able to, on their walkie-talkie, are they going to be able to call out or get signals in? I guess that's the question.
Yes. Now, on every single house and every single hospital, every single building, I can't state that. We didn't design an in-building coverage system. So it will operate the way we designed it, covering the county, bearing in mind today that you currently are covering in the 38% to 40 percentile with a walkie-talkie. So what we're able to do at this point is provide coverage throughout the county. In addition to, you have mobile radios, which are 35 watts output, which will blanket the county. The other thing will happen is you have, a lot of times, you have fire ground channels. So if you have fire rescue within a building, maybe they can't talk back to a repeater for some reason, they can talk to the command staff right outside the building. Or you have, with the sheriff's department, you have radio-to-radio coverage, so that handles that as well. So there's many different ways to take care of that, but we've designed it so they will talk with walkie-talkies and rely heavily on those because they're out of the vehicles.
Mr. Cully, you may know this. I'm not sure if this is for Motorola or someone. What is the operating O&M on this per year? What are we looking for operations maintenance of this system? I mean, not just capital costs, but
Off the top of my head, I had that spreadsheet in November. It's about $239,000 for. We're currently about $65,000 on the system we have today. I think that's somewhere around the number.
Yeah, and that's after 3 years. Part of the RFP originally, the county asked for 3 years of warranty, which is, we don't normally do that. It's usually 1 year after acceptance. So after the county accepts the system, then you have 3 years of warranty. And then after that, the maintenance will kick in. And what the maintenance is for your local service facility, radio communications, who you've dealt with for over 30 years, to take care of the system, any issues that crop up.
all right. The other thing I noticed in here too, you mentioned in your communication, you mentioned Stafford and Hanover a lot. Okay,
Yes.
I mean, because I think they have a similar,
Very similar
sister system. Okay.
Yes.
But a lot of the stuff we're going to be dealing with, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of stuff dealing with Hanover. There's no question.
Sure.
But what about, like, there's something going on in Spotsylvania that's coming towards Caroline, or what about the communication with Spotsylvania deputies, King George deputies? anyone that borders us outside of, you mentioned Stafford, you mentioned, Hanover. What about those other counties?
The system that you are purchasing is what we call APCO 25 or P25. And the reason for this terminology, it is a standard that the industry uses. So whether it's a Harris system, whether it is another type of competitor system, we can talk to them. Now, we'll have to wait till they become P25. They're not P25 yet. So the radios that your public safety folks have can talk 700 megahertz and 800 megahertz in the radio with one radio. And so they would be able to talk directly to Spotsylvania once they become, and they implement their newer system, the P25 system. And they're all set with Hanover and, of course, the Capital Region, as well as Stafford. Now, with King George, they're VHF. I handle that area as well. And what you'd end up doing with them is you would end up what we call cross-patching, or you would end up utilizing some of their control stations in your center and vice versa. Or you can, on occasion, if you're doing a lot of work with them, you can use a dual band radio, a radio that's VHF 800, 700. So if you're going to do a lot of talking with them, or you have a specific fire station that's very close, that may be the way to go. But there's many ways for interoperability.
Okay, and I have just one final question, Mr. Chairman. For someone who's in dispatch, how difficult is this? How much training? How difficult will this be to operate?
Well, that's the beauty of it as well. The newer system, what the dispatcher's looking at, their screen is going to look exactly what they look at today. The GUI, if you will, or the screen itself, hasn't changed. So there'll be very little training involved. And speaking of training, that's included as part of this package. So we will train your dispatchers and train your users for the subscribers.
Mr. Black,
Okay.
just so you know, GUI is not something sticky. It's GUI, graphic user interface.
Okay.
Not necessarily for you, but what they look at to make
Yeah, I'm
changes.
sorry, I don't mean to throw those
Right.
around. I should do better.
That's okay. We speak technology.
Thank you.
Mr. Cully, you have to add something?
The actual maintenance pricing sheet is in the back of C5. It's the last sheet. So pull tab D and go back one page.
How much software? I've got mine behind me. How much software is included in the 6.5 million? How much software is included?
How much is in
How much software is included?
dollars or?
Dollars.
I have no idea. I don't know. I haven't broken it out to that kind of scenario, but it's all included in the 6.5. It's software and hardware.
Right. You just said the system was software driven.
Yes.
So I would ask a logical question of how much dollar amount software is involved in the software driven system. But if it's not broken out like that,
Yeah,
you can't. How's maintenance determined?
Maintenance is determined by the service facility here, RCV. It's things like on-site repair, advanced replacement, things of this nature. If you need something, example, a base station goes down at a site, and instead of worrying about do we have spares to take care of it, and you do have spares quoted, by the way, we will advance replace. So we'll send something out next day air and replace it and then send it back. We won't worry about sending it back before we do it. But those are the types of things that are covered under
That are handled in the maintenance agreement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I come from a software background.
Right.
So I give you software, a CD or something, and then I charge you, depending on where you are, 15 to 22% for maintenance annually.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of why I asked about the software question.
Right.
So, but your maintenance for this particular project is all inclusive. Software, hardware, on-site,
We have a software maintenance agreement quoted as well. It should be on that back page.
$100,000 a year for software maintenance.
You can do that.
Okay.
You can do that software upgrade on a multiple year.
It's entirely up to the county when you want to do your upgrades. The way we publish our upgrades is they're based on calendar years. So if you look at our next release is 7/14, that's coming out this November. If you look at it and you go, you know, I really got to have whatever 7/14 is going to present, then you make the plans to do that. But if you look ahead to 7/15, 7/17, on, and you go, no, I don't really need anything until 7/15, then it will take and give you 7/14 and 7/13 in that upgrade.
Together.
So, you know, that's the kind of thing that you have to make those decisions. You know?
So let's suppose I decide to buy this system,
Yes.
but I say I'm gonna not get software maintenance because I think if it works, it's gonna keep on working. There may be a new feature, a new widget that I gotta have, but for $100,000, I may decide not to get it.
You can
So
certainly do that.
I'm not gonna pay for maintenance.
Right.
Excuse me, hypothetical situation. I'm not going to pay for maintenance.
All right.
But in 2016, there comes out a new feature that, you know, does whatever, and I say, I got to have it. So I'm 3 years behind on maintenance. Do I have to pay back maintenance to get that latest release? Or do I just give you $100,000 and you say, yeah, you know, you're good?
Well, there is a continuity fee. Yes, if you don't do it for so many years, correct. You have to pay something to catch up to where you want to go.
What's that continuity fee?
I do not know, and I mean, specifically, I'm not, you know, I don't know how to answer the question right now because we're talking about hypotheticals. I can give you a real example.
Okay, let me give you a real example.
Okay,
I'm not going to pay maintenance
that's fine.
for 3 years.
Okay,
So I saved $300,000. I feel real good about that.
right.
Then you go and say there's a great new feature in 2016.
Yes, sir.
I've saved this $300,000. Am I going to now have to give it all back to you to get the latest release based on the continuity fee?
I can't answer the question here in front of you. I can get that information from my life cycle person and get that to you. Okay? I'm not qualified. I have a life cycle person that does all of those things.
Okay.
And he will actually come out to the county and do a presentation about life cycle before sign off.
Okay. And you know, that's a real life scenario.
Sure.
And I have no problem embarrassing the state, but the state bought a system in 1992, didn't upgrade it for 10 years. They
Right.
basically paid maintenance at 20% for 10 years. They could have bought that system twice in those 10 years.
Right.
So I'm thinking, is my maintenance fee comparable? Do I have it, if it's 20%, do I have $500,000 worth of software in there? That's why my fee is $100,000. What happens if I don't do the maintenance? Because I may have a hard time. I got to buy school buses, I got to buy new school buildings, I got to put a gym on the building next door. I got a lot of stuff I need to do. I'm going to do whatever doesn't hurt most.
Okay.
And not hurting most sometimes maybe I'm not going to pay that maintenance agreement. I got all these copiers. I'm not going to maintain those. If they break, tough. So that's a point we need to kind of solidify. If you need a break to call somebody or whatever, I know it's late, but I'd just like to know that, just to see which we can go. Where did I stop? Mr. Black, you were done? Mr. Seeley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions. I guess the first one, because you called this system something else, I'm just wondering what Astro 25 IP means then.
It's our terminology for P25. APCO is actually the organization that administers the standard. So it's APCO 25. Our system is Astro 25. So just a play on words. and it's shortened. Usually you'll hear the word P25.